I was home from school, sick, and in my room alone all day. And at one point, I decided to practice what it would be like to have a penis, because I thought, like, I'd heard about puberty, but I thought puberty was when your penis developed. And so I wanted to practice with like a Tylenol bottle and a sock in my underwear, like what it would look like when my penis developed. Because I knew I was a boy, my penis hadn't arrived yet.
I was the first girl in my family. All my cousins are boys. And so I had grown up with this like excitement about having a girl and being able to buy girl clothes and girl dressing and toys and stuff like that. And I hated wearing dresses and that type of thing. And my mom made our clothes when we were little. And so she was very proud of all the stuff that she made, and people would always comment because she used to do embroidery on them and all this stuff. And I just remember thinking, oh.
I had a brother younger than me and a brother older than me, and it was their clothes I wanted and their games I wanted to play. I remember distinctly having like these boy clothes that were my favorite. It was my sailor suit, and all I wanted to do was wear my sailor suit because at the time it was the boys' clothes that I had. So I see all these photographs of when I was a kid, and you'd think the only thing I owned was the sailor suit.
When I think about 7, and I got my first shirt that I absolutely loved. And at the time I may not have thought too much about it, except now I realize the only difference between that shirt and everything else I'd ever worn in my life was it was a little boy's shirt, a green polyester boy's shirt from Sears, I think. And I was in heaven with it.
My mother came from the South and always wanted to raise like a nice Southern belle with lots of manners. She sent me to white gloves and party manners when I was about 6 years old. And she would painstakingly make dresses for me with velvet and little rabbit buttons. And the moment I would see it, I would start screaming and crying, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't catch my breath, and she'd have to call the neighbors and tell them she wasn't beating me.
She's very much about appearances. I mean, my whole family, it's all about how you look to the outside world. You know, grandmother dressed to the nines to go to a doctor's appointment when she was, very sick. She still put on her high heel shoes and the hats and the gloves and the suit. I just, remember just screaming matches and getting grounded. I got grounded all the time because of what I was wearing or was not wearing.
I was constantly asking my mom for a haircut, and I would give her pictures of what I wanted, and I would tell her, even just give me a bowl cut, I don't care. Just put a bowl on my head and cut my hair. Because I couldn't stand football with the hair, because my big long hair would whip in my face, and my skirt would get all torn. I'd have to staple the hem. And I constantly had nuns rearranging my hair and telling my mother I was a disgrace, and grass stains all over my skirt, and rips in my elbow on the sweater. Both my socks would be hanging down because the elastics were pulled from soccer. At one point, finally, when I was about 15, my mother did give me a haircut, and as soon as my hair was short, I looked like a boy. I was at the Boston Children's Museum, and I was leaning against the wall waiting for my little sisters to come out of the stalls in the girls' bathroom, and this woman said, "Aren't you a little old to be in here?" And I didn't understand it at the time. One of my sisters explained it to me. They thought I was a boy, and I was so psyched.
I just do remember at the age of 12, someone mistook me for a boy, quote unquote, at a checkout line. And I remember making a little pact to myself then that if anybody ever mistook me for, every time people did that, I would tell them that I was a female, because that would show them the true diversity of females. Of course, the irony is now I've definitely stopped correcting people, and I prefer to be referred to as a he.
My sisters had a ballet recital, and while they were practicing, I was running in the aisles with all the other boys, and my mother just cracked down on me so hard. She even shook me. How could I possibly allow myself to be so out of control? And I took that message with me throughout my early adult years, being really down on myself whenever the male side of me got expressed. And I really hated myself for a long time. And whenever I was too aggressive, I became very suicidal, because I felt like I was disappointing not just my mother and my family, but like my heritage of, the eldest Italian-Irish daughter. Because I have always seen myself as really just a football player. I'm a quarterback.
I remember that it became more intense about having, she started bribing me, like, if you want money for college, then you need to grow your hair out and you need to look this way. And I did that because I wanted to go to college, and I went to a very ultra feminine, straight girl phase, and just remembering how uncomfortable I was, and I became anorexic and probably weighed about, I think the lowest I got down to was 118 pounds. I'm 5'7", so that's pretty small, pretty skinny.
So sometimes there'll be shallow interpretations in my family about why I am the way I am. Like my mother tries to explain it by saying, well, it's because you were born between two boys, and I just look at her like, so every girl that's born with an older brother and a younger brother, they're transgender. I was always attracted to my girlfriends and kind of romantically repulsed by the boys, although I wanted to be their buddies and play football with them. I would skip lunch and take a wicked beating just to be able to play football and soccer with the boys who hated having a girl on their team. But I had to play. It was the most important thing to me. Boys didn't appreciate having a girl on their team, so whoever ended up with me, they would elbow me and kick me and trip me and sabotage me, and, oh, you want to play with the boys? Shove me and punch me. It took a long time to get over that. And, I saw, one of the biggest offenders years later. He totally didn't even remember it. But, on a daily basis, he would give me such a beating just because I wanted to play football. And, in the context of my community, no one could understand why I wanted to play football. So, was I a fool? Because they could only see me as a girl.
Being punk rock allows you to pretty much get away with a lot, safety pins, crazy hair. So I think that was the place where I got to play with gender, because here was a whole group of people within a high school. High school is very you have each clique. And being in the punk rock kind of clique allowed me to be boyish in a way that I couldn't have in some other clique. And so I just pretty much wore black clothes and baggy and rode a skateboard and was one of the few girls that did that.
My whole life, I've always stayed pretty constant with my gender expression. And if anything, the things that have changed around it have been people's reactions and the words I was able to use to say what that was. I mean, for a lot of the younger part of my life, I thought I was a butch dyke, and that expressed my reality. And it wasn't until, the word transgender is very new. The earliest reference to it's in 1991. And in 1992, actually, I was being given a presentation as part of my activism in the March in Washington on what transgender was. And this is why this new word's being created, to help unite a bunch of different people who are gender variant that have been called a bunch of different things. And as the people were standing up there and giving the presentation to us as far as this is what it is, we want you to be educated, we want you to learn, at the end of it they turned to me and they said, and you are one. I kind of nervously laughed and I don't know exactly what I did right then, but as I walked away I realized that while it was a little bit presumptuous, it was really true.
So when I was in my late teens, I started thinking that I should have an operation to give me the penis I didn't get in puberty. And I really struggled with it for a very long time and ultimately decided that it would be equivalent to like committing suicide, that my whole family would just be in mourning so deeply and reject it so intensely. I would pretend like I'd already had the operation, and I would go to bars and dress up like a guy and put faint like mustache and deepen my eyebrows, although I didn't need to deepen them too much. But dress, with a tie and go out to clubs. I felt very alone because I didn't have like a gang to do it with. I didn't know that there were other people that felt this way at the time. I had never heard the word transgender or F to M, that I can just be a male and female, and that is okay. That never occurred to me. I felt like I was a freak.
I had always looked like a freak when I walked down the street. A lot of my early life, I had gotten very used to the fact that I was going to get physical threats, and that people would threaten to hit me, to kill me, to ice me, would try and jump me. This was unfortunately a standard part of my reality, and it was almost good for me when I finally found a way to express why this was happening. It wasn't just because I was queer or gay or anything like that. It was because I was transgender. The one time when I was in the bar and people were so aggressive, it was amazing. I was there for a fundraiser for the AIDS Foundation of Chicago, and I was within about 1.5 feet of someone who's describing how hard my face could be hit so they could determine whether I was male or female. One of the guys said something about fucking fudge packers and then spit on us and then jumped for us. And, we were surrounded by what looked like frat boys. So we pretty much thought, we're going down, and who knows when this is going to sort itself out, but let's hope we can, get out of it quick. But the amazing thing is, as he jumped on us and everybody else was like poised to just follow him in, that kind of thing, literally faster than any of us knew that this was happening, another guy jumped him as he lunged towards us and grabbed him and pulled him away from us. At this point, we're like, what's happening? What in the world is going on? That second guy was an undercover police officer with the university.
I consider my passing when someone doesn't use pronoun for me, or when they don't use ma'am or sir, when they're just, can't really tell if I'm a boy or a girl. And that's kind of like my passing. It's hard, though, to live that way. It's very hard. It's very, I feel unsafe sometimes.
When I wear women's clothing, I look like I'm in drag. I can never find very many clothing that are my size with my shoulders. But when I wear male's clothes, it's much more myself. But I know that it's cost me jobs. I was told, pretty point blank by a manager once that they couldn't hire me because I don't have a proper wardrobe. So I said, well, what's a proper wardrobe? She was like, well, skirts and high heels and blouses, like that. So, for me, that would be like signing up with the Stepford Wives. I couldn't just become anonymous like that. I'm a very top producer in my field, and yet the fact that I don't wear skirts is going to cost me a job.
I was fired from one job, and in another job, I had a lovely experience. It's a large parcel shipping service we all know of, and as I was a supervisor at that job and had told my coworkers that I just got back from the big lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender march in Washington, my boss, who liked me a lot, took the moment to comment that that would have been a great time to drop a bomb on Washington and kill us all. I understood that I was different, and I understood that I was never going to be able to make it in a corporate environment because of that difference. And so I deliberately turned away from most of the jobs I could have had, and a lot of the jobs that were better paying, certainly. And I went into a very, 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 very small field that I thought would be more accepting of me, and that was LGBT health. When you're a professional in the LGBT health or social services or activism arena, presumably you're going to be in a place that's a little safer and you don't get as much discrimination.
I was looking for an apartment a couple years ago. I was partnered with a trans woman, and so we went looking at apartments and we met with real estate agents, and we had the money and credit was fine and everything was fine. And 2 of the apartments that we tried to rent, we had gone through the whole process, and the real estate agent was like, oh yeah, this should be fine, this should go through. And then we would get a call and saying,